Welcome back, everyone. Our next panel, our training panel. Now, training is more than checking boxes. It's about passing on the kind of real-world knowledge and mentorship that shapes the future of our system. Now, this session is all about elevating the role of controller training, moving the elevation to inspiration, and making an impact that lasts. To lead the conversation, please welcome one of our moderators, Chris Willbanks, Vice President for Mission Support and Management Services, FAA. And joining him are our panelists, Amy Parish, Vice President of North America Programs at UFA Incorporated, Terry L. Biggio, Senior Director of Client Solutions for SAIC Civilian Business Group, Erin Wilder, Oakland Center Training Representative for NATCA, and also our other moderator for today, Jamaal Haltom, NATCA's National Training Representative.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. Just like the other panels, I think it'd be best, and Chris said in the backstage, it'd feel a lot better if you loosen us up by letting us say our names. So why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, starting with Chris, and we'll work to me.
I appreciate it, Jamaal. Chris Willbanks, Vice President for Mission Support. Used to be the DVP for Safety and Technical Training, so a little bit of difference here, but not long ago when we did the consolidation, we brought the technical training side over into Mission Support now. So when you hear Mission Support, there's a technical training side of that as well.
Yeah, Amy Parish with UFA, a long-time attendee of CFS actually. Attended my first CFS as a student, now here today supporting industry initiatives that are supporting you on your day-to-day efforts.
Good afternoon, and Jamaal, thank you for the invitation. It is really an honor to be back on the stage. It's been a while for me. My name is Terry Biggio. I work for SAIC. I've been working for SAIC in customer solutions for 5.5 years. Prior to that, I had 38 years with the FAA, everything from an air traffic controller in the en route environment, a couple of air traffic manager positions, vice president, regional administrator. I've been blessed with a great career.
Hi, I'm Erin Wilder. I'm the training rep from Oakland Center. Kind of lucky to be here with all of these people and just really appreciative of the opportunity.
Thank you. And I am Jamaal Haltom, proudly NATCA's National Training Representative. You know, our panel will move fast because we have to. They didn't give us a long time. But really what we want to focus on is that transition that we need to make in order to ensure that everybody's successful in training. Communication for safety. One of the most important things that we do in communicating is communicating the transition from a trainee to a CPC. And that is really thankful to all of the work that you do as OJTIs out in the field. We want to just talk about tools and practices that we want to put in place to ensure that we make that transition and we take a step away from being evaluators more into trainees and mentors. So I'm sorry, more into trainers and mentors and coaches. That will be the theme of this. So you'll see that, and to get us started, we do have a video. So please play the video.
November 4321 Victor Academy Tower, into left base, runway 10 left.
Correct. Academy Tower, Piper 288 Papa Mike, 7 miles northeast, inbound for landing with information Alpha.
November 288 Papa Mike Academy Tower, make straight and runway 28 left.
Correct.
All right, let's take a look at RS's training that she was assigned last night. I see that she made it through most of her courses here. We'll start with this first one. She got an 89, working on some traffic advisories and pattern entry. All right, attempted 8 out of 9, that's good. 83 in the voice score, we'll take a look at that. Looks like her PTT was good words per minute, making good progress there. We've had some challenges. And then looking through the difficulty level, okay, we're doing real good here. Let's see if we can find some areas for improvement. Take a look at some of these slides. As always, RS is doing great with her knowledge work, getting those down. Looks like we have a phraseology error though. Let's take a look. All right, let's listen to this one real quick.
November 288 Papa Mike Academy Tower, make straight and runway 28 right.
Okay, sounds great, but we gave the wrong runway. All right, she's really listening to the things we're giving her. All right, so today we're going to work on a couple things, recognizing weight turbulence and shooting some aircraft landing clearances. But before we do, I wanted to go back over that airfield map conversation that we were having yesterday. A couple questions for you. Can you show me where, say, Taxiway Hotel is?
I'll be right here. And if I wasn't sure, I could always turn on my taxiway labels to show that.
Great. That's a great use of your training aids. That's a capability that will really help you as you get more familiar with this airfield. Understanding this is a pretty complex setup that you're getting used to still. So as you're working traffic, it's really important to know exactly where these things are at all times.
Academy Tower, KLM 791 Heavy, approaching inbound for runway 28 right.
KLM 791 Heavy, Academy Tower, runway 28 right for the line traffic ahead and to your left. Cessna, 2 mile final, runway 28 left.
I'm going to turn that way. Turn
KLM 791 Heavy, clear to land runway 28 right traffic inside.
Let's take a look at that wing turbulence. Spin this around, and you can see those vortices coming off that aircraft. Right off the wingtips, and they're going to travel backwards and down. So if you have a small aircraft on the final here and you're flying through those vortices, that's going to cause a lot of disruption to your flight path. And that's why we have that established wing turbulence separation. This is a great way for you to visualize something that a lot of controller trainees have a difficulty understanding, why we need our different 2 and 3 miles, 2 and 3 minutes of separation, or the different category separation on fire. Obviously, this I bookmarked when you did that departure clearance because I wanted to go back and talk about how you waited for that perfect anticipated separation where the aircraft's tail was just off the runway, and I made another bookmark when we talked about that go-around situation. The reason I kind of wanted to go back to that go-around situation is this is something you're going to start seeing a lot more in the curriculum as we press forward. Right now, we're working on foundational instructions and understanding aircraft movements and where they're going to go, but you're going to start seeing more elements where you think you've got a scenario working and it's working out effectively, and then something's going to happen that you weren't anticipating. What we're going to be watching for is how you respond. In this scenario, we stopped and we talked about it beforehand. These are the things I want you to think about as we move through training. What are the type of events that could happen? What are my actions if that was to happen? That's what's going to make you an outstanding controller.
So what you saw there was an opportunity to take and go away from just evaluating the student, and the OJTI was allowed to take that prospective controller and provide some coaching and mentoring. So a really quick disclaimer, we have an exhibit hall full of vendors. This is not a endorsement for one vendor over the next. We have several tools that can be adopted into the agency to help us do just that, go about the process of transitioning into away from evaluation and into coaching and mentoring. But Amy, we have you on stage. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we saw and those tools and other tools that possibly could help make that transition a success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy to report actually the trainee that you saw in that video is sitting on her FOL right now, a CTI graduate from one of the schools, and hopefully soon she'll be helping to support kind of the air traffic controller shortage and be attending a CFS as a controller soon. That's RS, and I thank her for her support there in the video. What you had a chance to see there was different ways that we're going to be able to deploy training with technology that's available to you, like Jamaal said, here in the exhibit hall and supported to you through industry. In the first clip, you were able to see a trainee using an online cloud-based tool that allowed them to learn phraseology, learn information about a new airspace they're going to, learn a new technique in an environment that feels safe and supported the way that they learn. And in that same instance, the OJTI was able to provide feedback and instruction based on those scenario runs, again, in their own time. We understand the burden that it takes right now for an OJTI to constantly give your time supporting training, and that is not going to be a cycle that's going to end tomorrow. We understand that. We're looking to augment that, make it easier for you to identify opportunities for improvement for your trainees, but also give them words of encouragement or support them when you see them excelling in areas. You also saw there a really interactive way to get your hands on learning new airspace or maps or airports, for example, with a digital tabletop, being able to visualize things, talk through skills or opportunities with your trainer, being able to watch scenarios that already happen and debrief those, and then try it again a different way is really what we're hoping going to be a game changer to help support controller training coming up.
Yeah,
thank you.
Awesome. Terry, I'd like to jump to you and get you to weigh in, get your perspective, obviously as the company now that provides most of the instruction, if not all the instruction at the academy as well as in the field. Your company has some of the technologies, as Jamaal mentioned earlier, many companies out there have it. how do we get your workforce at the Academy to embrace the technology that we need to move forward?
So it's a great question, Chris, and I will tell you, I love the technology, right? And being vendor agnostic, you know, it's a game changer. You look back in the past, and from those of you that have been in the tower option, where you're walking around the Academy with an airplane in your hand versus what's available today to stop, start, replay, those types of things. But culture change is hard, right? And I think, you know, I was talking to Jamaal about this earlier, you know, and I've watched through my years with the FAA and now even in private industry that culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's really hard. And I would submit that when we'll have to work to change the mindset not only at the Academy but also in the field of our SAIC instructors. But it's just so important. You look at some of the, to change that culture and work that we know that we're going to have to do. I just look at a couple contract articles that you have, such as ATCT, professional standards, critical incident stress management program. Those are programs that started out with somebody's vision to change, right? It was hard work to transition to get it to this point, and I think that's where we can go with transitioning from doing the evaluation versus the mentoring piece. And it's just really a matter, you have to have a plan, and we also know once we have a plan, it's going to change, but we have to get away from what we did back in the days, such as Train to Succeed, where we threw it over the fence, we changed the grading criteria, and then we hope for success. That's not going to work, right? So we know that we have to do that differently, and I'm excited to be part of that change.
It is exciting, and you know, you mentioned obviously change is hard. It's about changing the culture, but you know, I keep reminding folks what got us here and going to get us where we need to. And if there's ever been a time that we've had opportunity for change, it's now, and it's really about doing things. You know, I want to highlight, you know, my partnership with Jamaal has been phenomenal, and really looking to say what can we do that we haven't done moving forward. And so anyway, a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon.
Absolutely.
And Terry, with that, you had a few slides
Sure.
They're up there. Maybe just speak to those and what types of tools you have at the Academy or
Sure.
you're going to put into the field to help with training.
Yeah, and this is where I really get excited because it really is about the technology. It's one thing to say that we're going to change. It's another thing to come up with a strategy into getting into that change. But how do you augment that, right? And we need technology. So when I look at, you know, you look at the slide in the first article, it's an actual article from Newsweek, right? Our profession gets dragged through the mud because of the staffing. We know that we've got to be able to increase our staffing, right? The only way to get out of this hole is through training. And that's something that we're focusing on. In the middle of that slide, the barriers to certification, and it's also graduating the Academy, is those are comments from our instructors of what they feel that we need to do as a leadership team to invest in to help students be more successful. And the end result for us, really, that pathway to success on the bottom is, you know, hopefully within a year from now we'll see better press, we'll be able to increase our numbers, but there's a lot of technologies that are coming, and you've seen them out on the floor, right? I mean, it's just amazing what comes out, and if you go to the next slide, Jamaal, I'll talk about a couple of those, and I'll be brief.
Well,
it's not
having
that
a little bit of trouble with the slide.
That's okay. Yeah, it's the Rubik's Cube.
There we go. Right there?
Yes. So I don't know if any of you, I'm going to date myself. Rubik's Cube was a challenge for me as a kid, and it's still a challenge to me as an adult. And the goal that we're trying to do with the Rubik's Cube is to be able to, you know, how do we line up gamification, working on AI technology? You know, what about having remote pilots from home to be able to do part task training for students? And that's where we're trying to take this to. And another example, we've got two examples that I can offer, and there are VR headsets that are out there. Then, you know, vendors have that technology, but the administrator mentioned yesterday that the 4 through 9s don't have much for technology, right? And so there's 177 4 through 9 towers. Our goal, vendor agnostic, is to provide those facilities with having those types of technologies available. You can train before you get there. If your release date is a year away, you can train before you transfer from one. We created a digital twin for Twin Falls, Idaho, and we tested it out over there with good feedback. So we know we're in the right direction, and the vendors are in the right direction to work with you guys to try to bring technology into it. And probably the one that I'm most excited about is now AI. You'll start to hear things about second generation AI. So we've got a platform that we stole from our DoD side. They're Who's in the military out there? Raise your hand, please. Thank you for your service. So if you have a battle plan, right, within the first 30 seconds, that battle plan is gone. So for the Air Force, through second generation AI, we were able to create a platform that can forecast what's going to happen and make those moves to help them plan better, where you've got a room of 40 people and then cut that down and make split-second decisions. And what we've done is take it and we've devoted our time to bringing it into training, bringing it to the instructors, right? I can ask it a question such as, what's the separation behind a 757? It will tell me, right? That was a question that you had to ask.
Yes.
Or answer, right? Or what's the difference between a traffic advisory and a safety alert, right? Looking at all those critical items that students are trying to learn, whether it's at the academy, in the field, and a second generation AI platform, what it does is it will take every other AI platform that you have out there. This one sits on top, manages the AI machines underneath it to basically turn it into a supercomputer. So there are some AI platforms that are good in testing. There are some that are good in scenarios. There are some that are good in presentations. So we've developed 4 lanes, one for admin, management, trainers, and trainees, so they can go back and forth and what can we do with data, right? Predictive analytics. So it's a really exciting time, and we're really looking forward to unleashing this technology into our profession.
Awesome. So, Erin, a lot of the things that we're talking about are future state, right? Amy's tool is not yet deployed across the NAS, although I know from talking to some of the FAC reps and trainers and controllers out there that they can't wait to have their hands on it. But, we have you up here because absent you in the field, they'd say, you guys don't know what you're talking about, you're not in the field. You're at Oakland Center, you have tangible, recent experience in turning around a facilities training outlook. As we know, Oakland Center for quite a while was viewed as, let's say, less than desirable, perhaps, right? Sometimes, most certainly, those that came out of the academy would be told, maybe Oakland's not the best place for you. We did a training assessment back in November of 23. At that time, ZOA we did a training assessment in 22, but then as late as 2023, ZOA's staffing was projected at 67.4%. Now, nearly 2 years later, still not perfect, but it's projected at 82.8%. So keeping with the theme of teaching and mentoring, can you tell us some of the things that you've done from the perspective as it relates to both trainees and the people that train the trainees?
Absolutely. So I'm going to touch on what Jamaal actually just mentioned. The first thing we really needed to do was accept that we needed help. So our training department was floundering, basically. At one point, I think we had 85 trainees sitting in a room upstairs waiting. So the biggest thing was our NATCA leadership accepting that we needed help. And a few of us had gotten together and got in touch with our RVP to get this training assessment initiated. Now, I don't know if any of you have really heard of that unless you've experienced one yourself, but it's totally different than an ECV, different than any audit. It is allowing a collaborative team to come into the building, management and NATCA, and tear your training apart. We were scrutinized. We were not doing a lot of things right. However, they gave us a lot of suggestions on how we could improve things, and we did. Our training has to be conducted a little differently. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of Terry's people in the Bay Area because it's so expensive to stay out there after you retire. So we have a massive issue retaining retired controllers to use as contract instructors. Our training department is comprised of an area lead from each en route area in the building. They're also CPC controllers. They come upstairs, they teach the D side classes, they teach the R side classes in the lab, because like I mentioned, we don't unfortunately have a massive staff of contract instructors. I think it's actually to our success on this end rather than our detriment. It allows for that natural mentorship of having your instructor in the lab be a controller that also works on the floor. So it allows for me as your instructor, because I am one of these people in my designated area, to train you in the lab, and then you might see me the next day working on the floor keeping currency. You can come plug in with me. You can get a little bit more comfortable monitoring on the floor and just seeing how your training might be. And then the last thing that the agency has massively helped us on was getting some of the placement initiatives going, getting people from the academy that actually want to be at Oakland, in Oakland, utilizing some of the transfer initiatives. We've gotten a lot of CPCITs in the door that actually want to live in the Bay Area. We've had a massive problem with hardshipping. This has definitely decreased because of some of the things that our leadership has fought for. And I think it's allowed for a more locally derived and locally motivated workforce. Our OJTIs have been absolutely killing it. They've conducted a lot of training, and I believe most trainers, they want to train people that they know they're going to receive a return on an investment. So we've definitely seen a huge increase in that.
Yeah, and part of the teaching and mentoring is not just, as we said, in the OJTI category, but as it relates to people. We learned from that, and we were mentored by Oakland. What do we have to do in the field to increase things, right? And some of that, as you just spoke to, appropriate placement, and we'll cover that as we go forward. But making sure that the morale at a facility is taken into consideration. That morale raising at Oakland has made Oakland a place that is more attractive. And really want to give credit to Charles Howell, the FAC rep there, that identified an issue and didn't say, I can fix it by myself. Let me reach out and see is there a greater fix, and that helped us all to tackle that. So thank you for your leadership there at Oakland Center as it relates to that. Do have some statistics to share. I think you all have come accustomed to seeing these statistics. These are the facility or the academy success rates. Chris, you want to talk a little bit about the success and what it doesn't necessarily include? I know when we converse about it, you say there's some elements that...
There is. But the main thing I want to highlight is if you go back about probably 8 to 9 months, when you look at the en route, we were sitting at our all-time low of about 57.6% success. We're at 62 now. That's a little over 4% increase in success within the last 8 to 9 months. Doesn't seem like a lot, but again, every little bit counts. We've kind of hovered right around that 73 mark in the terminal side, and then our IQTR, we're showing 92.4%. Our first class graduated the IQTR back on May 4th, so this is not a whole lot of data that you're looking at. We hadn't had a whole lot of classes. I think we've had 6 classes maybe, started in January. First one graduated May 4th, so we're starting to see a few of those individuals out there in the field. I know it's different for most people. I've gotten mixed feedback just in conversations that I've had that, it's weird to start in the radar versus starting in the tower. But again, that's about that change. It's about doing things different, things that we haven't done in the past. We're seeing a great success rate with it out of the academy, and I kind of chalk that up to the fact that we require TSU for anyone going to a level 9 or above. We built this program with the mindset of we need to hit our 8s and 9s. So you now have individuals going to a 8s that would technically be considered more trained than what they need to be because they've got the TSU element on there. So they should be showing up well prepared, but we have to be prepared to receive them as well because we're not used to training in that radar environment on the first side. But to your earlier point on those success rates, what you're looking at there is everyone that showed up at the academy, sat down on day 1, and did not graduate. We have a lot of folks, a lot, that's probably an over-exaggeration. We have more than I would like of folks that resign before they ever get to the evaluation period. Those are counted in there as well. So if you take out the people that resign and only count the folks that actually took their evaluation on the last day and looked at graduation, we're about 6% higher in all categories of what you see here. So this is a representation of everyone that showed up at the academy and then those that actually went to a facility.
So at the facility level, and we can't sit here and ask you all OJTIs, trainees to embrace the transition if there's no skin in the game for you all, right? That skin in the game is to get our facilities healthy. We have to, each and everybody that comes through that academy, we have to do everything we can do to invest in their success, knowing that not everyone will be successful. That same thing has to happen at the field level. How do we address the 8s and 9s, the issue that Nick spoke to and Frank did when they were up here? How do we recognize that there was an issue if we don't know where each and everybody is and where they are? So we watch this, we monitor this very closely, we break it down into categories, we send this out so that each and every one of you is aware of just how vital every individual that walks through that door is. We don't have a reserve of trainees as we try to supercharge and do all of those things. There's still not 5,000 people showing up in a year. There's X amount, and that amount changes. This next slide will kind of illustrate that and what we have here. On this slide, it's just showing you the fiscal year 25 statistics, the checkout rate, how it worked out at the academy, and what that turns into, 1,030 CPCs in about 1.2 to 2.9 years, so almost a year and a quarter to 3 years. If you look over here on the other side, we said, what if we were able to increase that percentage at the academy and then at our field facilities by 10%, right? So you take your academy percentage in the tower and get it up to 83. Your en route, get it up to 72. Terminal radar IQ, because it's already high, we didn't say we need to necessarily lift that. Our 8s and 9s, the problem at our 8s and 9s would be solved within 1.8 years because we have a shortage of about 234 controllers there. What that allows them to do is transition to higher level facilities. Our en route facilities, we'd have 631 people checked out in the next 2 years, and we know we can reduce those times. Our 4 through 7s, which is the major pipeline to go up and around to higher level facilities, could have 632 CPCs in 1.23 years. So we can't ask you to invest if you don't know what that investment payout looks like, and that's why it takes each and every one of you to participate in that process. With that said, Chris, having all of those tools, what's your role and responsibility in ensuring that it turns into something?
I would say first and foremost, removing the obstacles so that we can get these things accomplished. We've talked for the last year and a half at all the initiatives and things that we're looking for. We're finally at an opportunity to be able to execute. 4 months ago, we assumed control of the academy. It might not mean a lot to many people, but the whole idea was to have everything from the hire to placement from the academy in one organization so that we weren't continuing to battle internally with our own obstacles and bureaucracy. We were able to cut through that, streamline some of these processes. You know, Erin talked about it earlier about folks wanting to go to Oakland. Again, we've expanded some of the placement processes. We continually look at where we can place people, how can we do it better, making sure that one, we're getting people where we need, and two, we're getting people likely closest to where they would like to be. So about a month ago, I put out an RFI to the field. It goes out to industry, and it's basically, you know, layman terms, you know our problems, tell us what you can do to help us fix them, right? Embrace what we can do with technology, any modalities, different vehicles that we can train. We're open to everything. I'm excited. We got 38 responses from industry. I've not had an opportunity to go through them, but a lot of what you see out here in the vendor's booth are things that we're going to start embracing at the academy. We're going to start embracing in the field. And again, putting every tool available in the controller's hands, in the supervisor's hands, everyone that needs to be successful to make more CPCs at the end of the day. I want to go back to your slide real quick here and just point out one thing. I don't know if anyone paid attention to the net increase. Just with a 10% increase across the board, that's an additional 510 CPCs. And that's just based on current stats, right? So if we have the ability to reduce time to certification and we have the ability to accrue success rate, you're going to see those numbers even higher in a shorter period of time. So,
yeah, you know, that takes an investment from all of us to make sure that happens. So, you know, Erin, being in the field and some of the things Chris just talked to, and you touched on it just a little bit when you did speak to, but, you know, that placement process. The placement process is one of the things that falls under, Chris and I work on those as well, and that placement process, it was very important to Nick and at the time, Tim Morrell, to ensure that we got people where they wanted to be out of the academy so we could stop those hardships, stop those movements, not have people who were disgruntled when they showed up at a facility, and we did change that process quite significantly. 75% of every class gets to go where they want to go. Raising the CRWG numbers up to 100%, we could have staggered it, but we said, let's get them where they want to go. Hopefully that stabilizes movement. How is that having an effect at your facilities?
Like I mentioned when I spoke earlier, I think our OJTIs are probably the people that are most affected by this, right? Because like I mentioned, most people are motivated to train, not necessarily by giving them 25% extra, which is a great thing, but they're motivated when they see the faces of those people they train becoming their peers and coworkers, right? So noticing that we're getting more people certified that are gonna stay, that are gonna work with us for the long game of it all, I think allows for more training to occur. And we've seen a lot of success in it from the CPCITs we've gotten, from the AGs that you guys have given us that have requested us. I believe our workforce has definitely been more locally motivated to get their training done and get them through the program quicker.
Terry, Amy, anything?
Listen, I'll say from a university standpoint, of course, they were quite, we're seeing a lot more interest in staying in those programs because now they know they may have a better opportunity of going to a location where they're comfortable and they're supported. So I would say the efforts that have been put forth there have been positive.
And I would say, Jamaal, placement is key, right? Because if we can't get a student to where they want to be, we know as soon as they're full performer or CPC, they're going to want to go back to where they want to go, right? So that's why we've had different programs in place, like in New York and others, to try to attract locals. But it is a key to our success because otherwise you're perpetually training, and that training takes 3 to 5 years, depending on if you're one facility to the next.
Yes.
You put it together, that's a delay. You don't get credit for the fact that you've already achieved CPC.
Good. Well, I don't know if you guys know the sitcom or heard of it, Everybody Hates Chris. Well, everybody loves Chris in D.C. because he has $100 million, or at least they think so, right? So Congress appropriated $100 million for training. I'll let you expound on that after I ask you the question. With that large sum, what do you think we'll have in the near future as it relates to simulation and otherwise that helps our OJTIs in the field do just that, transition from evaluators to invested mentors and coaches? How are you going to spend that money? And by the way, before you answer, coming to you guys next, so be prepared.
Yeah. So first and foremost, a little context going back to the reauthorization. Reauthorization said we're going to put a TSS in all 263 towers out there. Through conversations with Jamaal and others, we realized that we don't need a simulation in every single tower, a simulation as we know it today. We are going to invest in more simulations. I think right now we're roughly around adding 113 more simulations, understanding that we don't have space in every building. So some of these places we're looking to look at, do we put a mobile trailer there? But we're looking to make sure that we put one in locations that everyone has the ability to use and get to. So, and when I say get to, I don't mean 2 hours away. We want it feasible for people to get off the boards, be able to go and train on that. But the bill itself really didn't say it was necessarily had to be for TSSs, right? It was about training technology, and so that opens it up a little bit. One of the places I want to invest is in our TRACON simulation. No, I don't think that we've touched TRACON simulation in quite some time, and I think there's opportunity for improvement there. And then some of the technology you see here. We'll sidetrack and hit a question real quick because it caught my attention, and it's talking about the ability. It says, is there any ability for new technology to interact with the Falcon to generate interactive training scenarios from real-time traffic? Yes, there is, and it's been demoed to me by at least 2 or 3 different companies that has that ability. I'll share a vision with you, and again, I don't always get my vision, but what I would love to have is a trainee and a trainer to get off a session and be able to go debrief, but have a replay on an iPad within 5 minutes of that session being done so that they could take that back there and walk through what I would or what I would not have done based on that training session. Again, to me, that's what is out there, that's what's available, and when we talk about $100 million and investing in technology, it's those types of things. AI is something, we talk about it in generality all the time. I was very specific in the RFI. Tell me what you're going to do with that AI, right? If I ask a company, do you have AI? Every company can raise their hand because everyone can tap into chat, right? I want to know specifically what you are going to bring to the table and provide for us AI. We have the ability for AI to give me feedback, right? If I'm working on phraseology, on maps, anything like that, and then analyzing the data. What is the data telling us? One of the things that we've struggled with for quite some time at the Academy is where are we losing people at the Academy? Where's the pain point so that we can make those real-time adjustments? If we have all that information loaded, I've got data being analyzed to tell me where I need to make those changes and those adjustments so that we're not doing it 6 to 7 months after the fact because we've lost too many people. So a lot of opportunity. I'm excited on where we are and where we can go and where we can take this. But Jamaal, you hit it out of the gate. We can't do it without you guys. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, as it relates to simulation, one of the key things to do is to get people to understand the value of simulation. It's never to replace OJTI, but it is to enhance it. For the most part, we use our simulation right now as a prerequisite to stage 4 or 5 or 7, 6, and 2 or 3 in the en route environment. But we don't use it beyond that. If we had simulation systems that people believed in, let's take Las Vegas Tower and TRACON, 2 separate facilities. I'm already through the lab. I already made it through and I'm on the floor, but it's a Wednesday afternoon and there's a cloud in Las Vegas, so no one's flying, right? So yeah, take a trainee from the tower and a trainee from the radar environment, and you have interactive simulation. Why would you want that? Because it's going to provide a more real simulation than the simulator that's perfect, right? You don't want the perfect ETG or the perfect TSS. You want that trainee to give the actual feed that they're going to give to that other trainee and see that they react. As we get better in our simulation, we expect that all of our OJTIs will have more faith in it and be more willing to use it more frequently and get us to that point. But don't want to get too far away from how to spend Chris's money, so we'll start here and work back toward Amy. Erin, with you.
Oh, you want to start with me? Okay, so I'm going to kind of touch on what both of them have said. So I think the way to spend this money, I think you have to continue to incentivize paying people to train. I mean, the agency showing their appreciation for it matters to people, and not acknowledging that, it kills morale. And I've noticed people being so much more motivated, like I've said, whether that be in simulation, in an en route facility like mine. We see a huge uptick in SIT and SDT, and the amount of tech that we're now using, to supplement OJT to get people certified. I think a lot of that has come with the incentives that you guys have given us to train. Now, to touch on the tech part of it, there are some things that Amy does have in her pocket that we didn't actually get to see on video, but there are things I've repeatedly said in the en route lab every day when I train, like, God, I wish I could rewind this and have you move things and maybe try it differently. Well, it sounds like what she has may be something we actually may get to be able to do that. I was training on Monday, I was doing an R-side class, and I literally said this out loud, like, God, I wish I could just rewind this, 5 minutes ago and see if you just made this one move, how it would change the entire sector and what you have going on. And spending money on some of that tech would be outstanding, especially for someone who trains in a lab every day.
Thank you. Terry?
Sure. I love this question, right? Because in my 38 years, I have never seen an investment in training like we're on the cusp of doing. Right? We've never seen this type of investment in this workforce to increase our numbers throughout the NAS. So it's exciting to see that we've got that. And when you talk about the technology that's available, Chris mentioned, where a student, there's technology throughout the world. Right? The beautiful thing of what I get to do is I get to travel throughout the world and see this technology. My goal is to see this technology, bring it back. I serve on a CANSO international body for training. What we're dealing with is not unique. Right? Other countries, granted, there's no other country that has the size, scope, complexity that you guys deal with on a daily basis. But there is some incredible technology that you just want to be able to say, look, we can bring this. You guys will be amazed. And what Chris was talking about, I saw it over in Portugal. And the ability to be able on the iPad, take the session from that day, look at their version of the Dash 25, look at the mistakes I made, do the replay, go over and over again. It gives me an opportunity to learn. It's just incredible. So I'm really excited about this time period.
Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, it's a great question, by the way. From the industry standpoint, when Administrator Bedford was here, he spoke a bit about how important it was to really pull in your primary stakeholders, evaluate where you've got bottlenecks and opportunities for improvement and focus on those. And I think that would be my recommendation. I can also say, as someone who's worked pretty closely with NATCA on a number of projects, we have seen significant success and advancement in our technology when bringing in a partner like the union. It's been huge for our technology, and I think then we're providing what's necessary in the field right now, but we're constantly looking at where could this be in 5 years and 10 years, and we don't want to be having the same conversation in 5 years or 10 years, finding out where you've invested that money has not grown with what may happen in industry. So
yeah, and for me to answer the question would be to simply not always spend on something new before we perfect what we have, right? Our ETG, our TSS, our TTLs, having those rewind features, having features that enhance it or tie them together to have more realistic simulation. Those things, I think, while we always want to be on the cutting edge, is really perfecting what we have goes a long way. Let's answer a few of the Slido questions. How can we staff the simulators when OJTIs, when we can't get staffing to cover the operation? First and foremost, we have to acknowledge that it is a big ask. It is an ask to say, to use that simulation knowing that it robs a resource from the floor. But we ask you to be strategic in that decision and say, can we afford to take this resource off the floor and use simulation? Is it going to be valuable? Is it more valuable than the time on the floor right now? And that takes a challenging question that only you can answer. And if the answer is yes, then go to the lab. That's why we incentivized it. That's why you get 25% to go to the lab to do those things. And if the answer is no, then the operation always comes first. Anything from you all?
No, I think you're spot on. We're going to jump to the next two questions and frame it, one for you and one for Terry,
Sure.
In the respected areas, because they're both talking about the same thing, and it's about burnout, right? It's about the burnout for the instructors at the academy, and Jamaal, the burnout, the instructors, the OJTIs in the facilities there. Terry?
Yeah, so it's obviously a huge challenge. We know what's facing us, right? We've got a throughput coming up on 2,200 for the academy. It's a far cry from where we were 5 years ago of 765. It requires resources, retired controllers to come in and teach. We know that we're only seeing about 300 controllers that retire every year. So it's a limited pool of those that want to be able to come down to the academy or even into the facilities to teach. So what we've done with the last labor agreement is 3-4 years ago when we started negotiations, we used to give a $25 a day stipend. Well, our first round, 3 years ago, we bumped it up to 60. With the FAA support, we bumped it up to 90. Right? It's a tax-free stipend. And what's nice about that is we're trying to attract controllers to the academy so we can cut down on the doubles. I was talking to a gentleman before this started, and some doubles are self-induced. They want to make the most money they can while they're there. I get that. But we don't want to mandate doubles. Doubles means you've got to work a 16-hour day. That's no fun, especially for someone that's, let's be honest, my age, right? Because that's the group that's out at the academy, so it's not easy. So we continually try to find ways to increase the staffing at the academy to meet the throughput so we can cut down on the fatigue that those instructors are experiencing, because we want them to give their very best. And if they're working 3 doubles, we don't think we're going to get the very best.
And for me, it goes back to the essence of recognizing that the importance of that training being meaningful, right? If we talk about transitioning from just evaluating to coaching and mentoring, if you're fatigued, you're not going to do that. You're not going to give it your best, as Terry just said. So we have impediments to recognize that I'm burnt out. We talk about mental health. That's part of your mental health. We recognize every person up here, including Erin, who's in the field, who is a facility training representative, recognize the gigantic ask that we're saying. Take your time to pass an art to someone who might not understand this art very well. It's stressful to you. You never get to do it alone. We recognize all of those things, and for that, we do have the opportunity to say, hey, I'm burnt. It's okay. Be realistic about it, and if you say that and it's not received at your facility from the union perspective, that's why we have facility representatives. Go have that conversation at your facility. Talk to them. In my experience, if you have that conversation and it's honest and earnest, people recognize it, and then we move on. Because a well-rested trainer is just as important as a well-rested trainee. So we have to take that seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else do we have? Have you noticed a positive or negative impact for implementing the 40% simulation training? For those who don't know, we have a requirement in our 5 through 9s to do 4 hours of simulation training per week. We've noticed a positive for sure. Usually, like a Yelp review, you get mostly only negatives coming your way, but I have anecdotally from San Antonio Tower, from Tower in the Midwest, San Antonio Tower Tracon, Gateway out in St. Louis, where I've gotten calls from members or representatives at the facility to say that 40%, it saved me. What we're saying is to practice, right? Our level 5 through 9 radar facilities don't always have consistent traffic. So we're saying practice when you don't have consistent traffic. And if you do have consistent traffic, guess what? You don't have to practice, you get to play. I always say this, Steph Curry's the greatest shooter of all times in NBA history. He's made less than 4,000 three-pointers in games. He shot over 1 million in practice. If you said, Steph, you can only shoot when LeBron James is trying to block your shot, he wouldn't be as good at shooting. So we absolutely want our people to have opportunities to practice. If those opportunities can't exist because of staffing, annotate it and move on. You know, we mandated it because we want to be able to record where you can or can't do it. So we only have a minute left. Chris, I'll turn it over to you to give the perspective and close us out.
I appreciate it, Jamaal. First and foremost, just thanks for the opportunity to speak. I love training. It's been a exciting opportunity over the last year, and even more exciting now as we've talked about all the things that we have on the horizon. I was serious when I said we can't do it without you. I'm not naive to think that I can sit at headquarters and make change along with Jamaal or anyone else sitting on the stage here. It absolutely starts with you. I think Jamaal hit on some phenomenal points. You know, it's about taking that extra step to get someone across the finish line, right? We're making a lot of changes at the Academy. I'm hoping and you know, that those pay off as they get into the field and you start seeing a different quality of trainees that are coming into the field. But again, thanks for the opportunity to speak and look forward to what we've got going forward.
Thank you for attending. It was a great panel, at least from my perspective. And Valerie would kill me if I didn't say this. Please go visit the training booth, find out, but don't just find out information, provide us feedback, and we are receptive to it. We'll try to make it better for you. So thank you all for attending.
Yeah. Thank you.